Yeah, Jeremy's getting hydrated before this new episode of Extra Bases with Bristol and Booth. Jeremy, doing some pinch hitting for me yesterday when the news broke with Justin Verlander. I really appreciate you hopping on KHOU 11 News and breaking down the whole Justin Verlander. I was surprised that happened so quickly, but you weren't. Why?
I wasn't, because the minute Noah Syndergaard signed for $21 million, you have to figure short-term contracts, high leverage money, chance to come back to Houston and compete in a shorter window with place he's familiar with. I think that was pretty clear. Jim Crane is got to be committed to buying what James Click is saying, and that's going for it, I guess, for the next couple of years. So that was not a surprise to see that happen. And it's a 2-year deal. It's not a 1-year deal. So that makes even more sense.
All right. Coming up on today's podcast, more talk about Justin Verlander and what can we expect in 2022. Also, Carlos Correa spotted in Houston with AJ Hinch. The two were brunching, lunching, breakfasting. I don't know. It was one of those three, or maybe all three. We'll talk about that. Also, Carlos Correa and Derek Jeter, the comments about the Gold Gloves. And finally, we are dipping into Jeremy's 2013 scouting reports, the Wayback Machine, to see how one of his players, the very last player on his list, ended up. So I am starting the clock, and we are good to go for 30 minutes. Jeremy, the one thing that really I find interesting about this Justin Verlander deal, yes, it's for 2 years. The expectations, and my concern, Jeremy, is you've got this guy coming off arm surgery. It wasn't that long ago. I got to believe that there will be a cap on the number of innings he can throw.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of a hybrid, I would imagine. I mean, he's had oftentimes pitchers come out of Tommy John surgery in their rehab, and they're stronger than they were before they went in. Okay. So the way he's taking care of his body, the way he's conditioned, I would be surprised if he throws as many innings as he had in the past, but I don't think it's going to be that much less. I think he's here to win. The only reason they're paying him that much money is to win. They have to be convinced he's healthy. They have to be convinced that he can take the ball again every 5 days. And look, in a rotation that he's stepping back into, you've got, Framber Valdez, you've got Lance McCullers, you've got Luis Garcia now. You've got Urquidy, I guess, that brings up the back end of that as your 5 in this type of scenario. But Verlander slots right back into the front and now allows you to go get some depth, right? So with that said, he's got to be who he's going to be for that amount of money and that amount of time here.
I counted 7 starters under contract for next season. The 5 you mentioned, you also have Christian Javier, and then you have Jake Odorizzi. So I think they actually have some depth. A lot of people on Twitter wondering, maybe they should deal one of those guys.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I wouldn't, unless it's for maybe a shortstop. Maybe I'd package Christian Javier for a young shortstop if you could. But I think you've got to stick with those guys, because we know that the Astros tried to go with a 6-man rotation at one point, and then they couldn't because the injury. So I would not be surprised to see some sort of 6-man rotation in the middle of the season to help McCullers and Verlander and everybody else.
If they run with a 6-man rotation, I would imagine they'd start with that, so they don't disrupt any routines, right? They'll make that decision pretty early on in the offseason. Everybody that is preparing to come back will understand that it's going to be a 6-man rotation. You don't want to disrupt routines, in May.
They tried to do it during this past season. They were going to do a little bit of a 6-man rotation to obviously save some wear and tear on some of the guys.
Yeah, but again, just because they tried it last year halfway through or partway through doesn't mean that's when they should do it. If you want to do something like that, you give people the time from the beginning to prepare for that all year. That's a player development thing. That's a health thing. And look, this stuff may have not. It may be around today. It's never been done before. But the reason why is because we weren't pitching with the same type of intent and type of effort every time we take the ball. So. it's not a bad idea. I still think guys can do every 5 days, but I do think starters are getting less and less prevalent. True starters, and Verlander is a true starter. So they got 7 guys under contract. I'd still go get another one, to be honest with you, because I think Javier is in the bullpen. I think he's better in the bullpen. I think you have to see how that thing comes together again. He's learning to pitch in the big leagues. If you're making a sprint / marathon to get into the playoffs and to try to go win another World Series, he's not one of your best 5, right? So he's got to be in the bullpen. He's got to have a chance to earn some innings that way, learn to pitch in the big leagues, and you can transition him to the front maybe in a year.
Well, if he's in your bullpen, he needs to get warm. He needs to get hot with, fewer than 75 pitches in the bullpen.
No question about it, and especially in the 4th inning.
But let's not go back. Let's not go back in time. There was a very interesting debate on Twitter between some people I really enjoy and respect in this industry. John Lopez, Sports Radio 610, Mike Meltzer from Mad Dog Radio. Basically, John Lopez was saying that Justin Verlander, if he had his Tommy John surgery earlier, we might have been able to see him pitch in the postseason, the World Series, in the sense that Justin Verlander had a workout for teams after the World Series and was reportedly throwing 96. In theory, and again, I'm not here to say anyone's right or wrong, but I guess my point is showcase innings, if you will, are a whole heck of a lot different than World Series innings. Showcase innings. How's the arm? Good. The velocity there. It's not the pinpoint accuracy trying to thread the needle. You're looking for a general feel of how somebody's doing in showcase innings. It is far less taxing than what you would see in a World Series or postseason game. So I don't believe that Verlander, even had he had his surgery earlier, would have been an option in the postseason.
Who was the guy that said that?
John Lopez from In the Loop, Sports Radio 610 here in Houston. Great show, him and Landry Locker.
I don't know how you can put yourself in the middle of somebody else's rehab off a surgery like that and speculate at all. I think that when you have those type of things, many people will try, rehab. They'll try platelet, the injections now into the elbow. They'll try any number of things to try to see how they're going to recover. Everybody is different in Tommy John. Everybody. So if I had Tommy John, I could be back in 6 months.
But what about, and the decision also when you're going to have it?
Well, it depends on what you're projecting. It depends on what you try ahead of time.
Because I think that Justin Verlander, when the news came out that he was having some issues, I really believe he was trying to figure out a way to pitch in 2020 because the guy doesn't have a lot of years left. I know he wants to pitch till he's 47, but these guys know the clock is ticking. That was another opportunity to go to the World Series. And my guess, yes, JV is very much about JV, but I also believe that he wanted to pitch because he knew it was another opportunity to get to the World Series.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I had some text messages tonight about the Astros re-signing him and how Verlander fits in the clubhouse. And I'm not in that clubhouse. I can't answer that for you. I know what I was told. But that said, yeah, I would agree. I think he's a competitor. I think he wanted to find a way back out there, realized he couldn't have had surgery. But even if he did have surgery 2 weeks prior, there's nothing saying he would have been ready to throw in the World Series or the postseason at that time. Would have had to been on the active roster before that anyway, and he wasn't. So you're talking about something that really is inconsequential, doesn't make any sense, and that there's no way to insert yourself into how somebody's rehab is going to go and tell them what's going to happen. It's just worked out that way at the end. It's all speculation. It's not real valid. It's not valid speculation. We just need to move forward. He needs to move forward with where it is now, and realize I think everybody's a little bit surprised that Verlander came back, but that it makes sense.
I'm also fascinated by this clubhouse dynamic and the reports that because Verlander wasn't around, that the Astros didn't want him around during the postseason to throw out a ceremonial first pitch. I'm guessing that he will be asked about that should they have some sort of news conference when it's time to announce officially his signing. He's addressed why he wasn't there during the year, but I think it's very interesting to think how he's going to answer that question.
So, it'd be interesting if I got some of the stuff some of the comments I heard today from sources. It'd be interesting if I got that stuff from the same sources 2 years ago, to compare. What I got today was that all the stuff you're talking about really adds up to the fact that those guys don't really like him all that much. And I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if it's not the case. I just know what I was told. It would seem to fit. Hey, Justin, you're not going to do rehab here in Houston and play catch. You're going to go to Florida and do it there. You're not going to throw out the first pitch here, right? You're not going to be around the club all year because guys don't want the distraction. That would all seem to fit with somebody they don't like very much. He is a lot about himself, but at the same time, what I will take the flip side of that is the professionalism that all those guys are showing to be able to play together and try to win, even with somebody they don't like, is pretty impressive. So, at the end of the day, he's back. The Astros management didn't think it was that big of a problem. I'm sure they asked some of the guys on the ball club what they thought about it. And, guys want to win championships. So he's back and they're going to go forward.
You think players were asked about it?
I think Altuve and Bregman were absolutely asked about it.
Okay.
And McCullers. I mean, those guys have earned the right to say, hey, he wasn't around all year. What do you think? And to that point, I know we're going to talk about Correa as well, but to that point, if you start thinking about the Houston Astros, right, there are certain any team, but Houston, because we're here, there's certain players that come to mind. Jeff Bagwell, Craig Biggio. I mean, it seems like Biggio throws the first pitch out every other day. Those guys are Astros through and through. Like, you can't visualize them in another uniform. They're tied to the city. I would say the same for Altuve and Bregman, and I honestly would say the same for McCullers, although I can see him going somewhere else later. I can't imagine Jose Altuve playing in another uniform. It doesn't connect to me. Springer, it was very easy to see him. George, was very easy to see him in my head playing somewhere else. You knew there was a time it was going to come to an end. Carlos Correa, there's a time that's going to come to an end. Like, you can feel it as that's going and where it was going to hit. But Alex Bregman's kind of the same thing. Like, I can't visualize Bregman, going to play. Well, I can't visualize anybody going to play, but in Citi Field, I can't see that happening there, right? I see Bregman here. So I think if you're James Click and you're Dusty Baker and you're the guys making decisions at that level, you're going to at least ask them, what do you think? Is this going to, interrupt it? We want to do it. We'd like to have him back. Do you think it's bad? And those guys are going to be like, you know what? I love him. I hate him. I don't care. I want to win. Sure. And that's a testament to the professionalism.
And you never know that perhaps maybe some of the people who have a problem or had a problem with that situation, they might not be with the team in 2022. You just don't know. I'm not saying I do know. I'm just saying there's that dynamic because teams make changes all the time, right? Yeah,
some of those guys aren't going to be back. I mean, it's a couple guys in particular aren't going to be back, and it's that's how the game is. I mean, it's not show friends, it's show business. You know what I mean? So they're going to have to go ahead and make the best decisions for them. And, even if put myself in back in that position, because we know I've had some conversations around the league this offseason more than most. And, I have said some things on camera that, some people may be sensitive to. But the reality is that I have been myself and I've said these things, and people are going to have to, when they've come to me, it's not so much about, do you have our opinion? It's, do you have an opinion and can you help us win? That's the conversation you have to answer. And I think that these guys are doing the same thing. They should. If you're not doing it that way, you're doing it wrong. You have to be able to bring people in and have people around, players, front office, scouts, that have different opinions but will help make you better. And I think that the Verlander situation is an absolute testament to, it's not show friends, it's show business.
And speaking of show business, I am not surprised that AJ Hinch, the manager of the Tigers, was spotted in Houston dining with Carlos Correa. So I guess they are show friends as well.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you've got a team that's clearly in need of a player like Carlos Correa. And why wouldn't AJ Hinch? Why wouldn't he say, hey, we should grab a bite to eat together? But realistically, I actually think the Tigers do have a shot to sign him.
Which part of that you want me to answer first?
All of it.
All right. Look, Correa was very very open in the past. All those guys were about how they felt about AJ, So to have a relationship with him is key. Carlos lives in Houston, clearly hasn't sold his house. AJ Hinch lives in Houston, clearly hasn't sold his house. I live in Houston. I clearly haven't sold my house. So, I mean, Houston's Houston, right? People like being here, whether they go play somewhere else. I mean, it's a great town. It's a great place to be. It would make sense that even if Correa was under contract, those guys would go have lunch, or breakfast. So I don't think there's too much to read into that. It's just like Correa, in New York with Martin Maldonado right away, right after, I think it was UFC or WWE, whatever he was doing, right after the season was over, those guys went to New York. And
come on, Jeremy. That's apples. That's apples and oranges, my
it's
friend.
not. It's everybody thought he was going to New York, Yankees, Mets. He's not going to either place, but that's not the point. I do think, however, that the Tigers are close enough to being good, learning how to play, that Correa can step in and help usher in a window, especially if you're talking about an 8 to 10 year contract. I don't think the window fits here in Houston for him. So I think you're looking at a team that's on the come, or a team that is already established. And if he's not going to fit in a window here where he's established, because same reason, Altuve and Bregman and those guys will be here for life. If that's not the case, the best shortstop in baseball, and there is no question about it, the best shortstop in baseball is going to be looking for a contract that, frankly, is a little bit irresponsible. And, the deal Francisco Lindor got, it's irresponsible. The deal that Fernando Tatis got, it's irresponsible, but they're still out there. And so I think he's going to do that. The Tigers have a history of paying guys like that. Texas has a history of paying guys like that, going back to Alex Rodriguez. I think the 0% state tax makes a lot of, he's going to like that. So he's been used to that. I see him in Detroit. I see him in Texas. I don't see him in either New York, but I'll give you a dark horse as well. And only a dark horse because it's switching leagues, and that's the Philadelphia Phillies.
Playing alongside MVP Bryce Harper, perhaps.
And that may be the reason why he doesn't go. Because I think Carlos wants to go somewhere where it's about Carlos.
I'm the man. He's not the man. I'm the man.
I think there's a lot of similarities to him and A-Rod, wherever I go, I got to be the guy, and it's got to be about me. And hey, I got this, and what about my commercials, and what about? I think that's how he is, and I think that neither Detroit nor Dallas is enough of a media market to feed that like he probably wants. But
Dallas is a big market.
It is, but he's looking at New York and LA type of stuff, and the Dodgers aren't going to do it. They're going to sign Seager or, their guy, Corey Seager. They're going to slide Trey Turner over. The Angels, the more I think about what they're doing with their pitching and what their ultimate fit's going to be, especially though Ohtani is an MVP, Anaheim isn't for Carlos Correa either because he's got Trout and Ohtani, right? So there's going to have other guys that go out there. They'll probably sign a stopgap, like bring back Iglesias and Jose Iglesias and some things out there. It's the same thing before they can get somebody else to the big leagues. I think he ends up in Dallas or Rangers or Detroit. I don't think there's too many other markets out there that are going to support it. Again, Philadelphia is a possibility, but Bryce Harper's that's his team.
I got to believe that Yankee fans are more upset about his comments that Derek Jeter doesn't deserve 5 Gold Gloves than, say, the Yankees, the team, would be. But that's just my guess. I don't know why he said it. I mean, I get his logic, but I just don't understand why you would say that. Now, certainly it's a little looser. The forum, I assume it was some podcast, looked like it. And guys are just talking like we do. But yeah, I don't know if I would have gone there. I think you can preface it by saying the argument is there are people that think, some say, but that's just my 2 cents.
I'd be curious to hear what Reggie Jackson has to say about it, because, Reggie and I was very fortunate to spend some time with Reggie throughout the postseason, and he had nothing but respect for DJ, And so when I hear that from Correa, part of me wants to say, bro, you're A-Rod, same type of mentality, And the thing with Alex Rodriguez is nobody ever knows if Alex is being genuine. I mean, we saw him, we saw him in Atlanta. The guy gets up from his, I think that was Fox. Was it Fox? And he gets up from the set and grabs a rake and starts raking third base. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, he's got this big grin on his face, and Ortiz and Thomas are just like,
that's show business.
Right. That's show business. And so I think Correa is the same type of approach, unfortunately. You can't tell if he's genuine or not. He wants to win. He wants to compete. I think that's clear. A-Rod was the same way. But, Alex would get out of the box and he'd look around and act like he didn't see you. He had that glassy look in his eyes, like that John Cena, you can't see me. But he had that. He was like, everything was a show, and I think that I'm not saying Carlos is like that, but unfortunately, like with Bregman and Altuve, it's real. Like, everything's out there. It's real. And Carlos doesn't quite feel real. It's not an insult. Some guys are good that way. It's just how he is. So, I don't know that I would have said that about one of the best players ever to play baseball in our time. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think he was 100%er, right? I think Rivera is the only one that's done that. I don't think he was 100%er, but 99.9. I just think Carlos has a long way to go before he's anywhere near what Derek Jeter has done. Derek Jeter, I believe, has 5 World Series rings. He has 5 Gold Gloves. He has how many All-Star games? Carlos, when you get to that place, then you can say that. Until then, it's just your opinion. Doesn't make you look good. And it's not something that people are going to start opening up their checkbooks going, hey, this guy Carlos Correa, he's a clubhouse changing guy. He thinks Derek Jeter sucks. Like, you don't do that. It's just not something you do. And I think Carlos is going to regret saying that down the line, even if he doesn't right now.
Is it easier to pile on? And we're not piling on, but it certainly feels like piling on a guy who most believe won't return to Houston.
I'm not piling on him at all. If I was Carlos Correa, I'd come right back here. I wouldn't be asking for, 17 years and $497 million per. I would just be like, oh, you're going to give me 7. Because look, I promise you, the Astros would do 7 and 230. They would do that. Okay. Now, I'm not saying I have any inside information. I mean, James Click didn't call me on the bat phone and be like, what do you think? I'm just saying, like, if they went 5 and 160, they would do 7 and 230 to get the player. But that's called being reasonable. How much more money do you need, Carlos? How much, I'm not piling on. That's being reasonable. I would stay right here where it's show business, it's show friends, it's show love, it's show everything, and I would just want to be where my wife's at, where my family's at, where everybody's grabbing. My brother's in this organization or was. Like, where am I going? I don't understand that, but that's not piling on. It's his decision to make. I don't care if he was playing shortstop every night for the next 10 years. You don't make a dumb comment like that about Derek Jeter. What are you doing? What are you doing? So I don't think I don't think that has anything to do with the other. He's earned the right to make this decision. He can go wherever he wants. Like, that's up to him. I would come back here, but that's up to him. It's got nothing to do with the comment about Derek Jeter. Zero. Bad comment. Not a good idea. Everybody else has handled it with grace. Jeter hasn't even paid any attention to it. You know why? Because Jeter's a Hall of Famer with 5 rings, 5 Gold Gloves, and 19 All-Star games and 3,000 hits. Hey, Carlos, are you going to get to that? No? Okay. Shh. Don't do. What time is it? It's Hall of Fame time. That's what time it is. Okay. I'm kind of making a joke of it, but that's the point. It's Hall of Fame time. It's Gold Glove time. It is everything, Carlos, you don't have yet. Okay. When you get there, then you can talk about it. Until then, respect the guy.
7 years, 230, $32.8 million a year. I know it's not more than Lindor, but I think that's more than reasonable. In fact, I think some of the reported offers that the Astros have made, I don't think they're a slap in the face. I mean, when you look at the average annual value, they're not.
Well, all right, we'll break down Corey Seager, who's also had some injury issues, right? Tommy John, he's had some back stuff. I mean, he's not going to look for 10 years. I mean, he might try. He's not going to get that. 7 years? Sure. Does he go to New York? Maybe, but New York has a couple of shortstops that in their system, they're going to be pretty good. They got Gio Urshela playing third base. They've got Gleyber Torres' experiment, thankfully, is done. He's going to move to second base. So you have an environment there where they're going to find a stopgap as well. Corey Seager is a better fit than Carlos Correa in New York. It's just still not going to happen. So the Mets, they got their own man. Let's move on, right? The Phillies, no. The Braves aren't a fit. You start going down the markets, like what do you really have left? And that's what the hard part is about these guys. They ask for these huge, gigantic contracts. There's only so many places that will do it. He's not a fit in Seattle. He doesn't play second base, and J.P. Crawford's going to play short. Oakland's tearing it all the way down. The Dodgers, we've already talked about them. The Angels, maybe, probably not. The Padres, absolutely not. You've got the Rangers, yes. You've got the Astros, yes. The Tigers, yes. Milwaukee, no. Cincinnati, no. Pittsburgh, no. Philly, maybe. Both New York's no. DC, maybe. There's only 4 or 5 places to land, And DC, if they were going to do that, why did they trade Trey Turner? They kept him there. So I just think he's not in as demand as he thinks he's going to be, and this is the place he should want to end back up. Whether or not the Astros want him back, well, I think they should move on. That's my opinion, based on what they're looking to do, I believe. But if they can sign the best shortstop in baseball to something that makes sense, then they should do that too.
Just coming in from the New York Mets. Welcome to the Mets, Billy Eppler.
Shocking. Yep, good for Billy. The Mets in not counting the Brody Van Wagenen 60 games, and because that's like 1.5 years. Do you know they're since 2011 they're a 78 win team? Like I went back and looked. They're 78 win team.
Like on average.
Yeah, on average. 2015 they won 90, went to the World Series. 2016 it was a wild card year of 87. Everything else has been in the 70s, and I mean all of it. Did I miss something somewhere? The 78 wins on average. Does that get you rings?
No, but it gets you a lot of GMs.
Well, in this particular situation, the 9 years I referenced were all under Sandy Alderson. So good luck to Billy Eppler. Hope that he can turn that around. Obviously, Anaheim wasn't the best experience in the world for him.
Do you think he'll remain as general manager? Because I know that there was a report out there that said, oh, we're just going to keep the seat warm for that other guy, the one in Milwaukee, who has the last name of a former Mets catcher. Not related.
John.
Dude, John Stearns, the bad dude.
I think that they will absolutely keep Billy Eppler as the general manager. I think David Stearns goes over as the president of baseball operations. It's funny because before all this came out,
you teased it. I went back and looked at a podcast, and I was like, Jeremy's trying to say something. I
had it. I had all the info. I mean, it just was what it is. But Eppler and Stearns are buddies, and they kind of came to some kind of deal. Those guys can talk. Billy's not working for a club. If he was not at the time. He's not trying to hire David Stearns, but it put him in position over there in New York. Cohen has long had this affinity for David Stearns, and when he figured out he could probably get him in a year, because you notice David Stearns still has not signed an extension, so that hasn't happened yet, right? And that conversation, I promise you, has been had by Mark Attanasio and David Stearns. The Eppler becomes the front runner, and they look to somebody who has a background in analytics and they think has a background in scouting. He does in pro scouting. Who Billy's going to walk in there and say, right or wrong, that he didn't have much of a chance in Anaheim, Los Angeles, LA, Los Angeles. They're Anaheim to me, the California Anaheim Angels. Okay, he didn't have much of a shot there because how Artie Moreno does things. Maybe it's right, maybe it's not. None of us were in the room, but that's what he's going to say. But he's going to hold that down for a year, and we'll see what happens when David Stearns and the Brewers are done in 22.
All right, we have 2 minutes and 25 seconds left. We can go a little bit longer. Let's bring back a 2013 scouting report. The player ranked last on your list, number 166. Backup outfielder in role, can hit and has feel to make contact, no power, ceiling, or versatility. System depth and can help if needed in a pinch. Non-physical, has some effort to his actions. Playable defensive tools and skills, must overachieve and really hit. He was from Louisiana State University. He did hit. His name, Raph Rhymes, number 166 on your list. And Jeremy, you were right. Raph Rhymes topped out in high A ball, had some great years in college. He was a junior college national player of the year, but
LSU units, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is one of those guys beloved at LSU for obvious reasons. But as a pro, unfortunately, it just didn't take.
Yeah, I forget who it was that year, but somebody said I had seen him as an area scout in 10 and 11. He was a senior sign, so I'd seen him in 10 and 11 at LSU Eunice, and I had somebody say we should take this guy in the first round.
I'm sorry, what?
I had somebody say we should take this guy in the first round.
Hold on. Say that again?
I had somebody say we should take this guy in the first round. And, the funny thing about me, Jason, I'm big on accuracy. So like when guys try to twist things around and say, yeah, this guy over that guy, and this guy over that guy, and chirp from rooftops and do all the things like that, we'll just go back to the tape and we're going to rewind it. We have things called draft lists. And the funny thing about draft lists is that Raph Rhymes was a college performer. And he's works at Marucci Sports, who is a proud sponsor. We are proud to be working with them, the sponsorship of the New Balance Baseball Future Star Series and Program 15 Sports. He is he's excellent at what he does. But Raph was a good college guy. His heart really wasn't in pro ball. It was you could kind of see it. He was really enjoying Baton Rouge, and I think he played a year and a half and went right back to Baton Rouge, right? And so that was maybe a couple of years, and that was it. And he's a great guy, but no, Major League Baseball was not for him. He certainly deserved the chance to go out, but somebody said we should have him in the first round. I forget. I really do forget who said that. I remember looking at him I can see him going out of the senior sign, but he's not a first rounder. And he's a great guy, and that's how it worked out.
Because I selected this particular player, have I made it uncomfortable for you by choosing this one because of the business ties? And if so, I'm apologizing. I wasn't attempting to do that.
Oh, no, you didn't. I mean, I got him right. He was the strongest guy on my list. He held everybody else up. Went out and played a couple of years, topped out an A-ball, went back to doing something different. I mean, look, that's what it is. I mean, a lot of guys top out an A-ball. A lot of guys don't move on. Doesn't mean they don't have any talent. He has some talent. He deserved to go out there and play. Had a great college career. Great guy. Good teammate. A lot of guys liked him. I think he would laugh at that a little bit, and he should. And but again, we have people that tend to take things and twist around. You had this player over that player and scream from rooftops and do all that stuff down and into the Twitter sphere. And, like people who are decades old and buried that should not probably just stay where they in their box, but in any event, he's good. He's a good kid, grown man now, does a great job where he's at. It was a lot of fun to scout him though, because he played with a bunch of energy and he could hit the ball at the ballpark with aluminum bat. You could do that.
Raph, my apologies. I remember him from Katuitt Kettleers, Cape Cod League.
Yeah, he was a good college performer. He did about what he should. It was good though.
All right. Well, I've probably done better than I should have. So there's that. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, and all that stuff. And of course, we'll talk to you next week on the Extra Bases podcast.
Thanksgiving edition.